first time. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Utah.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman from Utah is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We're here to consider H.R. 4361, the Government Reform and Improvement Act of 2016. As amended, the bill combines 7 good government bills, each of which have been reported by the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and I look forward to hearing from some of the bill sponsors as we move this package today. Broadly speaking, these bills address 3 key issues: enhancing federal information technology security, modernizing the federal workforce, and addressing federal regulatory burdens. The first topic, enhancing IT security, is addressed through the first title of the bill and is championed by Representative Gary Palmer, also the sponsor of the underlying bill that is under consideration now. Specifically, Title I of the bill addresses the Federal Labor Relations Authority determination that was based on an incorrect interpretation of the Federal Information Security Management Act, or what's widely referred to as FISMA. The ruling permits federal employee unions to delay agencies from implementing timely and necessary cybersecurity protections, like blocking access to potentially dangerous websites, until the agencies first negotiate with unions over the changes. The second topic, the federal workforce modernization, is covered by Titles 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the legislation. Title II includes the text of H.R. 901, a bill introduced by Representative Mark Meadows of North Carolina. It requires the Office of Management and Budget to issue guidelines to prohibit access to explicit websites from federal government computers unless such access is necessary for investigative purposes. It's kind of ridiculous that we have to legislate this, but it is such a pervasive problem in our work on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. This is a vital bill that's in that package. We have heard numerous examples of this problem. One individual, for instance, Mr. Chairman, was at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and was identified by the Inspector General there. This person was watching 2 to 6 hours per day of explicit material, otherwise known as pornography, on the clock and paid for by the American taxpayer. Title III includes the text of H.R. 3023, a bill introduced by Representative Ken Buck to lengthen the probationary period for federal employees to 2 years after training is completed. Currently, the federal employees have a probationary period of just 1 year, which often does not give managers sufficient time to evaluate on-the-job performance. Title IV includes the text of H.R. 4358 and a bill introduced by Representative Tim Walberg. It will modernize the Senior Executive Service, also known as the SES, the elite administrators within the federal government. Specifically, the bill will increase the probationary period for SES members to 2 years and make SES members subject to the same suspension authorities for misconduct that are already applied to other civil service employees. Additionally, agencies will be able to remove the SES employees for, quote, such cause as would promote the efficiency of the service, end quote. So what we're trying to do is provide more efficiency, and this is an appropriate bill. Title V includes the text of H.R. 3023, a bill introduced by Representative Dennis Ross of Florida, to require the Office of Personnel Management to release an annual report on the use of official time by agencies. Official time is when federal employees perform representational work for a union in lieu of normally assigned work. I think it's appropriate that we have some more specificity for Congress to understand what is happening here. The third topic, addressing regulatory burdens, is covered by the final 2 titles of the bill, Title VI and Title VII. Title VI includes the text of H.R. 4612, a bill introduced by Representative Tim Walberg of Michigan to prohibit agencies from proposing or finalizing rules in the period between the day of a presidential election and the inauguration of a new president. The provision will address a recurring problem where sitting presidents from both parties rush through the regulations at the end of the term, which have come to known as midnight regulations. To counter the problem of midnight regulations, every president since Ronald Reagan who has taken over from the opposite party has issued an immediate regulatory moratorium to pause the regulatory process until it can be reviewed. Rather than forcing incoming presidents to handle a torrent of new regulations advanced by an outgoing president, the bill would allow new presidents to move forward on regulations they deem appropriate. And Mr. Chairman, Title VII includes the text of 4921, a bill introduced by Representative Mark Walker, also of North Carolina, to require the Internal Revenue Service to mirror what the agency requires of taxpayers in its own record-keeping requirement. Imagine that. The IRS has to live under the same standard that they make the American people live under. Specifically, the IRS requires taxpayers to keep their tax year information for 3 years after filing. This bill does the same. A lot of good bills wrapped into this package. I urge our members to support it. And with that, I reserve the balance of our time.
Gentleman from Utah reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I rise in strong opposition to this legislation, which is yet another Republican assault on federal employees and the Obama administration. Some members claim this is good government, a good government bill. That is simply not true. This legislation is a mishmash of several bills that would damage employee rights, weaken public health and safety, and do little, if anything, to advance government reform. Although there are many troublesome provisions, I will focus on the more harmful parts of the legislation. First, this bill would allow agency heads to fire senior executives with little notice. A senior executive would be allowed to appeal an agency decision only after removal. The agency's decision would be deemed final if an administrative law judge failed to issue a decision